And our next witness is Mr. Bob Dinneen, who's the president and CEO of the Renewable Fuels Association. Welcome, Mr. Dinneen, and you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, and members of the committee. I must confess I'm feeling a little bit nostalgic this morning, reflecting on the many times I have testified in this room on this very subject, going back to 2002, as the committee wrestled with how best to accommodate oil companies looking to eliminate the requirement to use MTBE, a petroleum-based additive contaminating drinking water across the country. The result was the first RFS, supported by the oil industry and a bipartisan majority here. The success of that bill gave rise to the expanded RFS in 2007, creating the very first carbon metric for liquid fuels. RFS 2 was transformative legislation, and it is accomplishing everything it was asked to do. It was intended to stimulate investment and expansion of conventional ethanol. Done. U.S. ethanol producers met the challenge, and we now have the capacity to produce more than 15.5 billion gallons annually. It was intended to create a value-added market for farmers. Done. Ethanol has created a robust ag economy that, importantly, allowed Congress to reduce farm program costs, saving taxpayers money. It was intended to provide competition at the pump. Done. Ethanol is the lowest cost octane on the planet, and because it's cheaper than gasoline, has reduced petroleum demand and extended the barrel, it has significantly reduced consumer prices. It was intended to enhance energy security. Done. U.S. oil dependence has plummeted, in part because of fracking, but most certainly also because of ethanol. Indeed, gasoline imports have virtually been eliminated in direct response to the RFS. It was intended to reduce carbon. Done. Ethanol produced today reduces greenhouse gas emissions 34% relative to gasoline. And ethanol from tomorrow's cellulosic feedstocks will do even better, making the RFS the single most effective transportation-related carbon policy in the world. It was intended to stimulate investment in advanced biofuels. Doing. While the inexorable march towards cellulosic ethanol was interrupted by the worldwide recession and banking crisis precipitated by $140 a barrel oil in 2008, these technologies are now rolling out, and the promise of advanced biofuel technology is being realized. So, what's changed from when the RFS passed with such broad enthusiasm? Some have said, well, the RFS is driving up food costs. No. The price of corn today is about where it was in 2007. Retail food price inflation has actually been demonstrably lower since the RFS 2 was passed. And as the World Bank reported again just last week, demand for ethanol has not had a meaningful impact on world food prices. Rather, the price of food is far more related to the price of oil. Refiners will say we're producing more crude oil domestically, and the RFS is just an anachronism of our energy scarcity past. Well, we've been reminded lately of the boom and bust cycle that is oil extraction, as the rig count has plummeted, 80,000 workers were laid off, and fracking operations in the Bakken have shuttered, leaving communities holding the lost hope of economic opportunity. Faced with the same falling oil prices, U.S. ethanol producers added 2,000 jobs last year, invested in new technologies, and worked to build new markets here and abroad. Tell me what has been better for America. Some, including EPA, have said we've hit a blend wall. We can't blend any more than 9.7% of the gasoline market. There aren't enough cars that can run on more than 10%. And boats and small engines will be harmed if forced to use the higher ethanol blends. Hogwash. There is nothing magical about 9.7%. 27 states today already use more. 23 states use more than 10%. And Minnesota uses 12.2%, all because of the increasing demand for E15 and E85. Today, more than 25% of the vehicles on the road are fully warranted for E15 or higher. 80% of the new cars produced last year were warranted for E15. For comparison, Just 11% of the cars on the road today require premium. You can find premium every place. So what's the big challenge about providing that an E15 fuel for those consumers that want it and can use it? That said, there's no mandate for E15. Even API says E0 is on the rise, and E10 will remain a ubiquitous fuel option. The pumps selling E15 will be clearly labeled. There's no reason to believe folks needing E10 or less for their small engines, boats, or motorcycles will be unable to find it. No, the only thing that's changed is the incumbent industry is fiercely trying to relitigate the legislative battle it lost a decade ago. But the policy objectives, energy, economic, and environmental security have not subsided. Indeed, they become even more critical as the planet warms, consumers struggle, and OPEC flexes its muscle. This committee wrote a great law in 2005. You gave EPA very clear guidance on how to implement the program and the flexibility to deal with issues. There's nothing wrong with the RFS that cannot be fixed with what is right with the RFS. There's no need to legislate changes to a program that's working. EPA needs to implement the program as you wrote it, and the full potential of the program will be realized. Don't be bullied by an incumbent industry intent on recapturing lost market share and preventing a more sustainable energy future. Celebrate as I do the success of this program. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Dinneen.